Hello, my name is Lilian Okibe. Welcome to my channel. So as many of you guys know, I did not start my locks with two-strand twists or comb coils or any of the methods that people use to start their locks. I started my locks with the Lilian Okibe Loc method. In case you don't know what that is, I'm going to link a playlist up in card so that to show you guys what that basically is, right? So, and since I started my locks, since my locks have been maturing, like I've had so many of you show interest in starting your locks with that method. Some people have actually gone ahead to start their locks. So some people are currently on their lock journeys now with the method that I used to start my own locks. So I decided I should make a video to basically tell you guys what to expect, because literally there are no videos online about this method because this method is obviously new. So I just want to give you guys like a heads up, just to let you guys know what to expect, so that when you start seeing changes in your hair, you will not be surprised like the way that I was surprised when I started. Right? So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, then please keep on watching. So we are going to start with the good part and the not so good part. I will not say the bad part. So like the first thing you need to know about starting your locks with this method is that obviously it's going to give you thick results. Like your locks are most likely going to be thicker if you start your locks with this method than if you start your locks with any of the popular methods that people use to start their locks. Starting your locks with this method will most likely give you the thickest results after behind freeforming. If you go 100% freeform, obviously that is going to give you the thickest results. Then after that, I feel like this method is another method that is going to give you very thick results. Your locks are going to be thicker, most likely thicker than if you started with two-strand twists. Now another good thing about starting your locks with this method is that you're going to have your hair looking like locks almost immediately. Like I'll put a picture on the screen now to show you guys what my hair looked like just 5 days after starting my locks with this method. So your hair is going to look like locks almost immediately. But now I'm not going to say that your hair is going to be locked almost immediately. So even though your hair is going to look like locks, it will still go through the normal locking process, just like if you started with two-strand twists or any other method, your hair is still going to go through the regular journey, right? The normal method of your hair locking, all the budding and all that, right? But your hair is going to look like it's already locked almost immediately. That's another advantage. Another advantage, which is also similar to the fact that your hair is going to look like locks almost immediately, is that you're going to skip that phase of people not knowing what you're doing with your hair. When you start your locks with two-strand twists, most times you have that phase where your hair still kind of looks like two-strand twists, but it looks like really frizzy and all, and then people are just wondering that, well, like why don't you take down your twist and do it again? You know, you're going to skip that phase, because since your hair is already looking like locks from the beginning, like people already know that you are on a lock journey, right? So yeah, those are the advantages. And let's move on to the not so good part, the part that many people don't like to hear about, and the part that scares people away. Like I've actually had people who see my locks now and they're like, oh, your locks are so nice, and I'll start my locks with your method, and then they go ahead to start their locks with the method, thinking that because your hair looks like locks like almost instantly, it means that you're not going to go through the locking phase. And when they start to see all the points I'm going to be sharing now, they lose hope and they go ahead and like uninstall the starter locks. So let me give you guys a heads up, so that just to save you guys that stress of starting and then not liking what you see and then going ahead to unravel the style, right? So the first not so good thing that you're going to experience is shrinkage. Like this method is most likely going to give you the most shrinkage. Like your hair is going to shrink the most if you start your locks with this method than if you start your locks with any other traditional method. Like you think mini twists has shrinkage, wait until you try starting locks with this method. Like your hair is going to shrink a lot. Those of you that used to watch my videos when I had loose natural hair, even though I never really did a length check or anything like that, because I was never really interested in knowing the true length of my hair. But you guys kind of had an idea of how long my hair was before I locked my hair. Like my hair was literally easy to go in a bun, in a puff. Like I could do two layer puffs on my hair. Like I could do like braids and stuff and have it like down here and all that. You know, my hair was pretty, I would say my hair was like a decent length, right? Even though I never really stretched it. When I started my locks, my hair shrunk up, and you are going to experience shrinkage, like massive shrinkage. If you don't know what your hair, like the maximum that your hair can shrink to, like when you're a loose natural, then I don't think you are really ready to start your locks with this method, because your hair is most likely going to shrink to its maximum potential, like to its maximum potential. And I want to encourage you guys to embrace the shrinkage, because without embracing the shrinkage, you're not going to experience or enjoy the other benefits of starting your locks with this method. It is the shrinkage that helps to make your hair look like locks almost immediately. It is the shrinkage that helps with the thickness of your hair, that helps to give you the effect of your locks being as thick as possible, as opposed to like if you start with any other method. It is the shrinkage that basically gives you the thick, rich, juicy look and like the texture and everything like that. So I want to encourage you guys to embrace your shrinkage. If you choose to start your locks with this method, your hair is going to shrink a lot. It will shrink a lot. Now if you're someone that you naturally have a lot of shrinkage, just expect that maximum amount of shrinkage. Now if you embrace your shrinkage, the shrinkage phase is not going to last that long. For me, it lasted about 3 to 4 months. Like my hair was steadily shrinking up until I believe when I hit the 3 to 4 month mark before it stopped shrinking, right? And that was because I did not fight the shrinkage. I basically embraced the shrinkage, and then so I allowed it to happen as fast as I wanted to, so that I'll be done with it, get it over with, and then move on to the next phase of my journey, right? So expect the shrinkage, and I encourage you to embrace it. Now if you choose not to embrace the shrinkage, it's going to stress you out. Starting your locks with this method is going to stress you out, because you may have hair that is like long to an extent, especially if you have like 4C, very kinky curly hair. You may have hair that is like really long and you feel like, oh, my hair is long. By the time your hair shrinks, like it will no longer be able to go up in a puff or in a bun, like it will be that short, right? So if you do not embrace the shrinkage, you're not going to enjoy your journey. And I recommend that if you know that you're not going to be ready to embrace the maximum shrinkage, then maybe this method of starting locks is not for you. Like, I'm being honest with you guys. If you are not going to be able to embrace the shrinkage, then you should start your locks with a different method, not this method, because your hair is going to shrink. And the best thing you can do for your sanity and for your hair is to just let it shrink and allow it to shrink. All the braiding, excessively braiding and banding and twisting and all to stretch it, I do not recommend it, because number one, it's not allow your locks to fluff up and grow to be as thick as possible, and it will slow down the shrinking process, and it will stress you out, because despite the fact that you're fighting the shrinkage, your hair is still going to shrink. But if you do not embrace the shrinkage and you keep fighting it, you will keep going back and forth. Like I said, those of you that are not new to my channel, you guys know that I started my mom's locks with this method. Now she was not willing to embrace the shrinkage. So from when I did the style on her, she was always putting her hair up in a bun. You know, even when it started to shrink and it was getting increasingly difficult to put her hair up in a bun, she kept on trying to force her hair to put it up in a bun and things like that. And the early stage of her lock journey was really, really stressful. And when you keep fighting the shrinkage will not come at once. And if it does not come at once, you're not going to start to notice the growth early on. Like for my mom now, because she was constantly fighting her shrinkage, her hair continued to shrink up until like 1 year before it finally started to like kind of like show a little bit of length, even though it was growing, you know. So the earlier you allow your shrinkage, the earlier you let it to shrink to its maximum potential. And when it finally shrinks to its maximum potential, that is when it can begin to grow, and then you can begin to start to see increase in length. So I highly like, I'm emphasizing this a lot because it is so important. If you really want to start your locks with this method, you have to embrace your shrinkage. Like, it is very important, because you will not be able to last on this journey if you do not embrace shrinkage. And your shrinkage with this method is going to be way more than shrinkage with any other method. So another thing you should expect if you start your locks with this method is frizz. With shrinkage comes frizz, right? So your hair is going to be very frizzy, especially in the first few months. I'll say about first 7 months or thereabouts of your lock journey, your hair is going to be really frizzy. And the good thing about the frizz is that the frizz also helps with the thickening of your hair and your locks, right? So don't stress too much about frizz. If you know that you will not be able to stand frizz, then this method is not for you. Your hair is going to frizz up, and it's actually the frizz in addition to the shrinkage that helps to make your hair look like locks, even when it has not started, it has not locked yet. So I keep people that watch my videos, people send me DMs to ask me like, how were you able to achieve like your hair basically look like locks so early on? And that's because of the shrinkage and the frizz. Right? Shrinkage and frizz, add them together and then you have locks, or something that looks like locks, right? So embrace the frizz, embrace the shrinkage. If you know you're not going to be willing to embrace that, then this method is not for you. Like for my mom no longer has frizz, like the part of her hair that is locked. My mom is a little over 2 years locked right now, right? And the frizz, the length of her locks like are no longer frizzy anymore. Like the frizz is completely gone. So the frizz can last anything to about 1.5 years, right? You may experience frizz until about 1.5 years, but after that your hair will stop being as frizzy, right? It's going to be like uniform and all that, just like mature locks, right? But for the early stages of your journey, you're going to experience a lot of frizz. Like you're most likely going to have more frizz with this method than if you started with 2-strand twist. So learn to embrace your frizz, learn to embrace your shrinkage. Another thing you should expect when you start your locks with this method is as your hair shrinks, the length of your locks also shrinks. It becomes slimmer. Like when you start your locks with this method, that first for about like the first week or 2 to 3 weeks of you starting your journey, your hair is going to look really cute. Everywhere you go, people are going to be commenting like, oh, I like your hair. Like your hair automatically looks like locks, and people can see that it looks like locks, right? And then people will definitely like it and stuff and everything like that. But after your first wash, depending on how long you delay your wash, if you go ahead and wash your hair from like the first week, obviously in about 2-3 weeks you should start to see frizz and like your hair shrinking and all that, right? But if you stay longer without washing your hair, obviously moisture helps with shrinkage and frizz, right? So if you do not wash your hair early on, you're not going to experience the frizz as quickly as someone who washes their hair early on, right? But nevertheless, after your first wash, you're going to start to notice like the massive shrinkage and like the massive frizz. Right? And the thing about like when your hair starts to shrink with this method is, unlike when you start to 2-strand twist, as your locks start to freeze up and shrink up and stuff, it kind of starts to swell, right? And so it looks like your twists are getting fatter. Now with this method, because when you first install, it's like starting like when you install the Lilian Okibe Locs, your hair automatically looks thicker than it really is, and it automatically looks much fuller than it really is, right? So that is kind of like a faux lock look, right? But as your hair starts to shrink, because your hair looks full, because like the sections are like really loose, so what happens is as your hair starts to shrink, apart from the fact in addition to the fact that it shrinks in the sense that it becomes shorter in length, it also shrinks in the sense that the locks become slimmer in look. So some people start to panic and it's like, oh my goodness, like my locks are getting thinner. No, it's part of the shrinkage. Your locks when you start your locks with this method, your hair is going to get slimmer as it shrinks. For like the first 3 months, your hair is going to get slimmer, right? Then when you like hit the 3 month mark and thereabout, if you allow your hair to shrink and allow it to be its thing, it's going to shrink up to about 3 months, and then after that, that's when you start to see that it starts to swell. So what happens is your hair first shrinks to remove those like spaces and stuff that you created because you made the style really loose, right? It first shrinks up to close up those spaces before it starts to swell up, right? I don't know if that makes sense. So if you guys see the last video, my last YouTube short, I showed you guys, like I gave you guys brief summary of how the last 10 months of my lock journey has been. I've been locked for 10 months, and you guys would see what I'm talking about. Like on the first day, my hair was like really thick and big, like the sections were fluffy and big. Then when I hit 3 months, like my locks became slim. They started to look like really slim and stuff. And then after the 3 month mark, that was when it started to swell and swell and swell. And now at this point, my locks have gotten fat enough that it has gotten to the thickness of how it was when I first started, that much thickness, and then your hair is going to continue to get thicker and thicker and thicker as you remain on this journey, right? But when your hair or when your locks first starts to shrink, it will shrink in length and it will shrink in thickness, but that's absolutely, you have nothing to worry about. Like, it is normal. That is how it should be. Then another thing to expect with this method is you are most likely not going to notice any like changes or any increase in length until about 8 months down the line. Like, even for me, like, and I didn't really notice my hair growing in length until about 8 months. For my mom, it was about 12 months or like 13 months, right? So depending on how fast you let your hair shrink, that's what would determine how fast you're going to start to see length, right? So if you allow your hair to shrink, then you should start to see length at around like 8 months or thereabout. But if you don't allow your hair to shrink and you keep fighting your shrinkage, it's going to frustrate you, and then it's going to seem like your hair keeps going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in thickness, in length, because 1 minute you're fighting it and so it looks like it's longer, and then next minute it has shrunken back up and then it looks shorter and everything like that. So another thing you should expect is your hair is going to start to budge pretty quickly. Like, my hair started to budge from about like my first wash. I started to notice budding in my hair. For me, it was 1 week down the line, but that also depends on how often you wet your hair. If you start your locks with this method, I highly recommend that you wet your hair frequently, because that just aids the locking process and it just helps your hair to move through the stages really fast. Now, when you wet your hair frequently, obviously you're going to experience way more shrinkage. Your hair is going to look all over the place and things like that, but just know that it's part of the journey. The earlier you get it over with, the better for you. Another thing you should expect with this method is your hair is going to be standing and sticking out in weird places. This is kind of normal for many other methods of starting locks, but I feel like this is particularly important in this, like, if you start your locks with this method, because you're going to start noticing this random of your hair, this thing of your hair sticking out in random places really early on, and it's going to take a while before your hair will fall. But that also depends on how you choose to style your hair. Those of you that watch my videos, you guys know that early on my lock journey, I used to encourage you guys to wear your hair down. Like, when your locks are still, I feel like you should wear your locks down up until, before you start to think about styling your locks one way or the other. Just give your locks that like at least 8 to 9 months to just form and just do its thing and be itself, right? For about 8 to 9 months before you start worrying about styling your hair here and styling your hair there. I feel like that will do your hair a lot of good, because the more you style your hair, the more it's going to be standing and sticking up in random places, right? And the more you leave your hair down, the more it will form a shape, worn down, and the nicer it will look when it is worn down. So I highly recommend that you guys should just embrace wearing your hair down as often as you can, especially if you start your locks with this method, at least up until when it hits like the 8 to 9 month mark. If you have started your locks with this method and somehow you've not told me, like, I know so many of you that have started, but if you've not let me know, please let me know down in the comment section and let me know how your journey is going. I know that it's not going to be easy for everybody. People are not going to understand what you're doing, in the sense that your hair is not going to look good or look cute to many people. So you're going to have so many people try to talk you down, try to convince you to, you know, take down the style, try to tell you that you don't look good and things like that. So if you're someone that doesn't have thick skin, then starting your locks with this method is probably not for you, because you're going to have those negative comments. Those comments will probably come from loved ones and family and all that. So you should be willing to but you should understand that these things can happen, and if you know that that's something that is going to bother you, then starting your locks with this method is probably not for you, because your hair is going to look, to other people, is going to look a mess. And that is something you should expect with many other methods of starting locks, right? That's something that you should expect generally with locks, but that's something that is going to be particularly like a big deal with this method really early on. Like, you're going to notice that your hair looking like a mess, like it could be within like the first 3 months or like the first 1 month for some people, right? You're going to have your hair look a mess to other people. So if you're someone that cares too much about what people think, if you care too much about what people think about you, or care too much about what people think about your hair, then this method is probably not for you. I know I just told you guys so many things that may be scary, but overall, like, starting your locks with this method is actually going to be very, very fulfilling if you stick to it and allow your hair to do what it wants to do. Like, your locks are going to flourish, your hair is going to be really thick and juicy. Like, you guys can see what my locks look like. I've had so many people who have started their locks with the method with this method also. They send me their pictures on my Instagram DMs and stuff, and their locks are really juicy and really thick and flourishing. I even saw another picture today, right? You know, so there are so many people that have started their locks with the method, and they are reaping the benefits. So if you want to do it, I encourage you to take the bold step to do it, but I just want to give you guys the heads up and let you guys know that it's not going to be easy. Like, starting your locks with this method is not going to be easier than starting with any other method. Like, if that is the reason why you're thinking about starting your locks with this method, then you should probably think twice because it's not going to be easier. For anything, it may actually be more difficult because you're going to have most likely going to have a lot of pushback from the outside world, because they don't understand why anybody would want to leave their hair kinky, coily, and with the texture and all and everything like that, right? It's going to take a few months before they start to see the beauty in your hair, so you should be ready to deal with that, right? And yeah, good luck on your journey. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If this is your first time on my channel and you'd like to see more videos from me, if you'd like to see how my locks progress, then definitely subscribe. I make videos about locks, and I also make videos about loose natural hair. So even if you have loose natural hair, you're still going to find some of my content helpful. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys in the next one.